Section 1 is all about rhythm. In exam, question 1.1 looks like this. Circle the correct time signature for each of these bars. And you'll be given 3 multiple choice questions. In order to answer questions like this, you have to understand what time signatures are and how to read them. In this example, we have a time signature of 3/4. The top number means the number of beats per bar, which also tells us whether it's simple or compound time, a concept that we'll come back to in the next video. For now, just remember the top number means the number of beats per bar. Meanwhile, the bottom number means the type of note. For example, 2 means a minim, 4 means a crotchet, 8 means a quaver, 16 means semiquaver, and 32 means demi-semiquaver. There are also 2 special symbols that refer to specific time signatures. The C sign refers to the 4/4 time, also known as the common time, whereas the C with a line through it is the 2/2 time, which is also called cut time or ABRSM. In summary, on this slide, the 3/4 time means in the music there are 3 crotchets in every bar, whereas the 4/4 time means in the music there are 4 crotchets in every bar, and the 2/2 time means there are 2 minims in every bar. Now, to better visualize the relationship between these types of notes, we'll have a look at a tree chart of note values. At the very top of the diagram, we have the breve, which looks like a circle surrounded by 2 lines on each side. 1 breve is equal to 2 semibreves, and you can probably see how the maths go. 2 semibreves then divides into 4 minims, and 4 minims divides into 8 crotchets, 8 crotchets divides into 16 quavers, 16 quavers divides into 32 semiquavers, and 32 semiquavers divides into 64 demi-semiquavers. In other words, each of these notes divides by 2 as it goes lower down the value. Meanwhile, there are also the rest that corresponds to the note types when the music is silent. First, we have the breve rest, which looks like a square dot. However, in the real exam, it doesn't really come up very often, so you don't have to memorize it, but it would be good that you know it anyway. Then we have a semibreve rest, which looks like a rectangle stuck to the top of the second line. And we have the minim rest, which is exactly the same look as the semibreve rest, but stuck to the third line this time. And we have the crotchet rest, which is probably the most common rest that you see in music. And the remaining ones, that is the quaver, semiquaver, and demi-semiquaver rest, they all have similar shape, except that the number of tails corresponds to the number of tails in the actual note. For example, in the quaver rest, you have 1 tail, which corresponds to the 1 tail in the quaver note, and so on for the semiquaver rest, which has 2 tails, and the demi-semiquaver rest, which has 3 tails. One very important point about the semibreve rest is that it's also known as the whole bar rest, because regardless of the time signature, it's always used if the bar is empty or silent, hence the name. Now let's come back to the questions. Before we can do these questions, we still need to learn a few more concepts. A dotted note means it's adding half of itself. For example, a dotted quaver in this case is equal to a quaver plus a semiquaver long in total. We also have double dotted notes, and the same logic goes. It's only that we add yet another half of itself. So, for example, a double dotted quaver in this case will be equal to a quaver plus a semiquaver plus a demi-semiquaver in total. Meanwhile, we also have the idea of tied notes. A tied note is an addition of two notes together. So in this case, a tied dotted crotchet plus a quaver means we add these two notes together to form a total duration of a minim. Apart from dotted notes and tied notes, we also have some more rhythmic devices. The first one is called the triplet, which is signified by this bracket with a 3 sign. When you see this sign over some notes, that means you play these notes in a time of 2 beats. In this particular example, everything you see in a 3 bracket will be played in a total duration of 2 crotchets only. On the other hand, we also have something called the duplets. A duplet is the opposite of triplets, which means we play everything in a time of 3 beats. That is also to say, whatever you see within the duplet sign, you have to play it in the duration that is normally occupied by 3 beats. Do not worry if all this sounds a little bit abstract at this stage, especially the idea of duplets, because as we attempt the questions later, everything will link up together. Now, lastly, there are still 2 more rhythmic devices that we need to know. The first one is the quintuplets, which is a little bit like the idea of triplets, where we squeeze more notes in fewer notes. In this case, we squeeze 5 notes in a time of 4 notes. Similarly, the idea of sextuplets is also about squeezing more notes in fewer notes. In this case, 6 notes into the duration of 4 notes. Now that we have learned everything from dotted note, tied note, to triplet, duplet, quintuplet, and sextuplets, we will be able to answer questions like this. In question A, the first thing we should figure out is the actual duration of the triplet group. Within the triplet group, we have one crotchet that starts the group, and then we have another crotchet with a dot, that means a crotchet plus a quaver, which is followed by another quaver. So in total, that is one crotchet plus one crotchet plus 2 quavers. In total, 3 crotchets long. If you still remember the idea of triplets, that means squeezing 3 beats in a time of 2 beats. And so in this case, the actual duration of the triplet group is equal to 2 crotchet beats. Now onto the second group. We see a dotted quaver plus a semi-quaver. And if you do the maths correctly, that means 1 crotchet here. And the third group is a quintuplet. And if you still remember, a quintuplet, it's about squeezing 5 notes in the time of 4. In this case, we squeeze 5 semiquavers in the time of 4 semiquavers. And 4 semiquavers is equivalent to 1 crotchet beat. And so this group is 1 crotchet long. And the last beat in this bar being another crotchet. So in total, there are 5 crotchets in this case, and the answer will be a 5/4 time. Having finished question A, you'll probably have noticed that I tend to group notes together to make my counting a bit easier. The same goes for question B, in which I'll start with the first obvious group. In this case, the dotted crotchets. A dotted crotchet is equal to 3 quavers. And then we have a beamed group. By the word beam, I mean the thick black horizontal line that group notes together. In this case, the second group is obviously the 3 notes following the dotted crotchets because of the beaming. Now we see firstly a quaver, followed by a dotted quaver, followed by a semi-quaver. And these 3 notes added together will become another 3 quaver group. The third group is a duplet. If you still remember what a duplet is, That means we play 2 notes in the time of 3 notes. In this case, we play these 2 quavers in a time of 3 quavers, and therefore it's our third group of 3 quavers. Lastly, we have another dotted crotchet, which is basically the same as the first group, and that's another 3 quavers here. In summary, there are 4 groups of 3 quavers here. That is a total of 12 quavers. And so the answer will be a 12/8. Lastly, in question C, we apply the same logic. First, we start with the sextuplets group. In here we have 6 quavers, meaning we play these 6 quavers in a time of 4 quavers. 4 quavers equal to 2 crotchets, or in this case 1 minim. This is followed by a second group of notes, in this case the dotted crotchets and the quaver. We can also tell this is a group because of the use of slur, so here's another quick tip for you. Here in total then we have another minim. And lastly we have 2 crotchets which form 1 minim as well. And so the answer will be a 3/2. So this is how section 1.1 in the exam looks like. If you're looking for some more practice, I'll highly recommend that you visit this interactive site where I've put together a lot of practice tests and mock papers with instant feedback. In the drill mode, you'll have access to all the questions section by section, so that you can focus on specific question types and practice them until you feel confident. There are virtually unlimited questions. In the exam mode, you have access to full papers in the exact format of the exam, with randomized questions each time. You have 2 hours to finish the complete paper, at the end of which you'll be given your score and feedback.